Hello, welcome to another episode of Shine Like a North Star. I am Carrie Burchell, the proud owner of North Star Coaching. I do leadership everything, really helping leaders slow down to go fast. So that's working with your teams, working on your own personal development, and helping you shine like a North Star. In today's session of Shine Like a North Star, we are going to talk through various ways that you can give feedback. In my work with organizations, which you can check more out here at this website, we've really done a deep dive around feedback. And I think that's related to this sense of emerging out of COVID, looking at how we give feedback, help people understand what needs to happen, how it comes across, how messages are perceived, not necessarily how they're intended, right? We know those things don't always link up. And so it seems more now than what I've seen in the last couple of years that feedback is especially important. And if we think about it in real simplistic terms, feedback changes lives. So how you deliver feedback becomes super important. So let's go through a couple of tips today to help you refine and define how you give feedback. The first tip is ask permission. If I were to do a Google search right now on how do you give feedback, asking permission, believe it or not, is one of the first things that's going to pop up on a search. So why is that, right? Well, not everybody is ready for feedback. And that could be because they had a crappy night's sleep, their baby kept them up all night, maybe they're hungover, maybe they're just not in a space to absorb feedback. That doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want the feedback, it's just maybe not now. In the flip side, feedback also gives you a chance to sort of assess how people show up. So when you ask someone, hey, can I give you some feedback? And they say, no, I'm not interested. Well, is it because the baby kept them up all night? Is it because they were up late? Is it because they've got a pressing deadline that they need to fit in on? Who really knows, right? And how they show up in relation to that tells you something about them. I definitely have come across situations where I've asked people, do you have a minute? I'd like to give you some feedback about ABC. And they have flat out shut me down. That tells me something about their readiness for feedback, their openness for feedback, their maybe commitment to the work. It could tell me something about the relationship the two of us have. Really, feedback is an opportunity to have people show up. And so that, you want to ask permission, because in that, however they respond tells you something about where they're at, which is helpful for you as a leader to sort of think through how you can help them make sense of the feedback. I remember a situation where I got some feedback and it really threw me. It wasn't a time when I was expecting feedback. It wasn't the kind of feedback that I expected. And that experience I had really leads me to the second tip, which is be specific. So of course, when we think about being specific, that necessitates us really thinking about this spin. So I sort of say that, in the day-to-day, quick, go, go, go is kind of the orange lines there. And as leaders, we need to slow down and figure out the root cause. So when we look at tip number 2 on the root cause of why you're giving feedback, that helps you get specific. So when I think of some feedback recently that I received, the person sat me down and for 20 odd minutes talked at me with a litany of feedback things that I had done, some blind spots I had, consequences of how I showed up that I just had no idea was coming across that way. It was completely overwhelming. And so, what can happen with that is you can kind of shut down, right? So, whoops, I'm flashing on the wrong things here. Here we go. So overwhelm will shut people down. When I had that 20 minutes of people just, wow, giving me feedback, I shut down. It took months to recover that relationship with that person. I remember going to my car in tears. And it just made me not engage. It took me just personally a while to process that information. And as I say, we covered, but that person and I took a while to get there. So inefficient, right? So when we think about giving feedback, be specific. And that, like I say, necessitates you kind of coming to the bottom of the spin. So regardless of whether you're asking permission and how people show up when you ask permission to give them feedback and you're being specific, feedback is all about grace and generosity. And that's just an overarching bit of tidbit. It's not even a tip. I'm just reminding you, feedback is hard. It's hard to give. It's hard to receive. So that prevailing sense of grace and generosity is something to keep in the forefront, right? And that's a little bit of how that other leader and I recovered our relationship, because I knew that her feedback was coming from a good place. I recognized some generosity with myself of not being ready, blind spots that maybe I should have been aware of. So being kind to yourself, being kind to that person, and just trusting that feedback comes from a good place, right? And again, how people show up with that feedback helps you affirm that it is in fact coming from a great place. So I would love to just be a part of your work. Feel free to check me out, check out some other resources that we have on the website. Let's be in contact. I'd love to help you and your team slow down to go fast. And one of the ways we can really rock doing that is through feedback, asking for permission, and being specific. More to come on feedback in future live sessions. See you then.